everyone! Continuing my weekend of diving into Bob Dylan, today it's going to be Hurricane. Now, a little disclaimer. Some years ago, I watched the movie Hurricane featuring Denzel Washington playing Rubin Carter. Now, as when Vlad gave me this song to listen to, I suddenly remembered that and I said, does this feature on the movie? And he said, yes, it is on the movie. Well, I don't remember. And I might recognize it when I listen to it, but it's been several years and I don't expect to remember it, especially since it was probably mixed in with the soundtrack and just the movie soundtrack. And so anyway, I just want to give full disclosure so that you're aware of my background and experience. But now I am going to listen for the first time attentively to Hurricane, knowing that it is Bob Dylan, knowing that it is the song Hurricane. Also, Vlad has told me that this song is not one of Bob Dylan's greatest hits. He said it's pretty big, but not the greatest. But he said he has chosen it because he wants me to understand more about who Bob Dylan was as a person, as an artist, as a musician. And he feels like this is a really good example. So, I am going to be listening to Hurricane. Now, before I dive into that, let me just remind you that if you want to have access to other videos of mine, which I cannot put publicly here on YouTube because of YouTube's policies with copyright and other such things, you can always go to my Ko-fi and Patreon pages and see what is offered there. And you'll find those which cannot be here, as well as other series, early access to things which will eventually come public here. Anyway, check it out if you're interested. But next, I have some paragraphs to read. Hurricane is a protest song by Bob Dylan, co-written with Jacques Levy, and released on the 1976 album Desire. The song is about the imprisonment of boxer Rubin "Hurricane" Carter. The background story is Carter and a man named John Artis had been charged with a triple murder at the Lafayette Grill. This is a question about pronunciation which I do not know. I live in Tennessee. We have a town, Lafayette. That is truly how we pronounce it. And if anybody dares to try to call it Lafayette, then they are laughed at as a non-local. How do you do it in New Jersey? Will somebody enlighten me? Lafayette Grill in Paterson, New Jersey in 1966. The following year, Carter and Artis were found guilty of the murders, which were widely reported as racially motivated. In the years that followed, a substantial amount of controversy emerged over the case, ranging from allegations of faulty evidence and questionable eyewitness testimony to an unfair trial. In his autobiography, Carter maintained his innocence, and after reading it, Dylan visited him in Rahway State Prison in Woodbridge Township, New Jersey. Bob Dylan went and visited Carter in prison. After meeting with Carter in prison and later with a group of his supporters, Dylan began to write Hurricane. The song was one of his few protest songs during the 1970s and proved to be his fourth most successful single of the decade, reaching number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100. Billboard declared that it was probably the most powerful song Dylan has recorded in a decade. Record World said that the story is true and the names haven't been changed to protect the innocent. The song was released on the album Desire in January 1976, making the Carter case known to a broader public. Hurricane is credited with harnessing popular support to Carter's defense. During the fall tour preceding Desire's release, Dylan and the Rolling Thunder Revue played a benefit concert for Carter in New York City's Madison Square Garden, raising $100,000. Was quite a bit back then, I guess. Despite winning the right to a new trial, Carter and Artis were once again found guilty when the prosecution argued that the defendants committed triple murder at the Lafayette Grill in revenge for the killing of an African-American tavern owner earlier the same night. In 1976, Carter was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. Dylan and the other high-profile supporters did not attend the trial. Artist was paroled 5 years later. In 1985, federal judge H. Lee Sorokin of the United States District Court for the District of New Jersey, who declined to hear the song when it was offered to him by his family, ruled that Carter had not received a fair trial and overturned the conviction, resulting in Carter's release and the granting of a writ of habeas corpus to Carter, commenting that the prosecution had been based on racism rather than reason and concealment rather than disclosure. In 1988, after the prosecution said they would not seek a third trial and filed a motion to dismiss, following their failed appeal to the Supreme Court, which declined to hear the case and upheld Sorokin's ruling, a Superior Court judge dropped all charges against Carter and Artis. So, one of those very complex, long cases meandering through the legal system in multiple ways, and at the center of it is Rubin Carter. And this is Bob Dylan's song about it, so let's see what it sounds like.
Pistol shots ring out in a barroom night. Enter Betty Valentine from the upper hall. She sees a bartender in a pool of blood. Cries out, my God, they've killed them all. Here comes the story of the hurricane. The man the authorities came to blame for something that he never done. Put in a prison cell, but one time he could have been the champion of the world. Three bodies lying there, does Patty see? And another man named Bello moving around mysteriously. I didn't do what he says, and he throws up his hands. I was only robbing the register, I hope you understand. I saw him leave and he says, and he stops. One of us had better call up the cops. And so Patty calls the cops. And they arrive on the scene with their red lights flashing in a hot New Jersey night. Meanwhile, far away in another part of town, Rubin Carter.
This is so interesting, listening to what he's doing here with the music. There is a very strong, assertive instrumental part. I'm comparing it to the previous Dylan song that I listened to. Here, the guitar is stronger. The instrumentation is more present. The rhythm is more assertive. This violin that's meandering through and giving some counter melody to the whole song is really quite nice. But the thing that strikes me most is, again, Dylan's singing, or rather I should say his storytelling. I feel like I'm simply listening to somebody tell the story as it happened. It doesn't feel like it's a story about the story. It doesn't feel like it's some artistic rendition. It doesn't feel like it's some dramatized version or that we are being asked to get involved in any way. It feels simply like somebody is telling the facts as they happened, no more, no less. That's it. And yet, he manages to put it to music and give it this rhythm and this it feels a bit unfair. Well, of course, the story is unfair. I'm familiar with the story because, as I said, I watched the movie some years ago. But the way he sings it, it feels unfair. He's not saying it's unfair. He's just telling the facts as they happened. And his voice is crying out the unfairness of it all. Again, the musical support to the story is, like the previous one, very simple. We have a whole string of A minor chords, then it goes to F, then we end up with some G chords that I saw pass us by, and that's pretty much it so far. It's simply the telling of a story. It doesn't sound like the victim telling the story, but it sounds like somebody who knows the truth of the matter. I'm saying that from the perspective of his voice and the tone of his voice and the way he uses his voice in this. Anyway, I'm going to keep going and maybe I'll have some more to say along the way.
Meanwhile, far away in another part of town, Rubin, Carter, and a couple of friends are driving around. Number one contender for the middleweight crown. Had no idea what kind of shit was about to go down when a cop put him over to the side of the road. Just like the time before and the time before that. In Patterson, that's just the way things go. If you're black, you might as well not show up on the street unless you want to draw the heat. Alfred Bellow had a partner and he...
Whoever is doing this violin is doing a very fine job of intensifying the playing as the story goes along, and we begin to understand more and more the conflict of interest and the unfairness of this whole drama that's going on. It's not Dylan's voice that is being dramatic. It is the violin that is telling us this is getting intense. This is really winding up. And it gets a bit frantic sounding, a bit uncomfortable.
Alfred Bellow had a partner and he had a rap for the cops. Him and other Dexter Bradley were just out prowling around. He said, I saw two men running out who looked like middleweights. Jumped into a white car with out-of-state plates. And Miss Patty Valentine just nodded her head. Cop said, wait a minute, boys.
I like this section. I like the way he handles the chorus and uses the rhythm of the words to contribute and to work with the rhythm of the music around it, which is primarily guitars and drum. So we have language, guitar, drum, working together as a trio to come up with this really interesting conversation of rhythms happening. I also like the way in the chorus it does turn into a multi-part song, a harmonized melody, because the verses are, again I have to use the word declamatory, just, well, this, and this, and this happened, bum, 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 bum. And so it's a very refreshing feel to hear a little bit of harmony, some changing up of rhythms, and a different texture, a different dynamic in the chorus.
And Miss Patty Valentine just nodded her head. Cop said, wait a minute, boys, this one's not dead. So they took him to the infirmary. And though this man could hardly see, they told him he could identify the guilty man.
The way he sings that man, and it turns into a sort of cry. It's so eloquent.
The guilty man. In the morning in a Rubin inn, they took him to the hospital and they brought him upstairs. The wounded man looks up to his one dying eye. See, why'd you bring him in here for? He ain't the guy. Here's the story of the hurricane.
There's the harmony again.
The man the
and the rhythm.
authorities came to blame for something that he never done. Put in a prison cell, but one time he could have been the champion of the world. Later, the ghettos are inflamed. Rubin's in South America, fighting for his name. Well, Arthur Dexter Bradley's still in the robbery game. And the cops are putting the screws to him, looking for somebody to blame. Remember that murder that you happened in a bar? Remember you said you saw the getaway car? Thinking like to play ball with the law. Think it might have been that fighter that you saw running that night. Don't forget that you are white. Dexter Bradley said, I'm really not sure. The cop said,
even the way he uses the full name, Arthur Dexter Bradley, multiple times. It's really quite a mouthful. And he could have just said Bradley, but somehow he's taken the full name, not just for identity's sake, I think. I mean, he's calling out every single name in here, every single individual in here by name. And I'm thinking, who would dare to do that?
Bob Dylan.
Who would dare to put the names in public in a song, kind of immortalizing them in a way?
He had to re-record it because the lawyers of the music company that he had a contract with, they said that we cannot publish this. So he had to re-record a different version without the names.
Okay. I see. Well, here we have the names, and it feels, I don't know, if there were somebody in jail for a crime, whether or not they had committed it, and there were these sorts of politics and investigations and court cases and everything, I guess I would feel uncomfortable putting names out like that, especially me not being a lawyer or investigator myself, just going off of somebody's word. Obviously, he had confidence in Rubin's version of the story, but that's kind of a scary thing to do.
Well, that's Bob Dylan for you.
Okay.
Arthur Dexter Bradley said, I'm really not sure. The cop said, a poor boy like you can use a break. We got you for the motel job and you're talking to your friend Bello. You don't want to have to go back to jail, be a nice fellow. You'll be doing society a favor. That son of a bitch is brave and getting braver. We want to put his ass in the stir. We want to pin this triple murder on him. He ain't no gentleman jail. with just one punch. But he never did like to talk about it all that much. It's my work, he'd say, I do it for pay. And when it's over, just as soon go on my way. Up to some paradise where the trout streams flow.
Somehow that starts to sound a bit Caribbean there. It does. Just as he's saying, up to some paradise. And this this chorus has been coming back with these rhythms all along. But here, suddenly, I realized he's really pushing towards the Caribbean musical traditions and sounds here. Well, trout streams aren't Caribbean, but still the rhythm makes me think of Caribbean style music.
Just as soon go on my way up to some paradise where the trout streams flow and the air is nice, and ride a horse along the trail. But then they took him to the jailhouse where they tried to turn a man into a mouse. All of Rubin's cards were marked in advance. The trial was a pig circus, he never had a chance. The judge made Rubin's witnesses drunkards from the slums. To the white folks who watched, he was a revolutionary bum. And to the black folks, he was just a crazy nigger. No one doubted that he pulled the trigger. And though they could not produce the gun, the DA said he was the one who did the deed, and the old white jury agreed. Reuben Carter was falsely tried. The crime was murder one. Guess who testified? Bellow and Bradley, and they both all they lied. And the newspapers, they all went along for the ride. How can the life of such a man be in the palm of some fool's hand? To see him obviously framed couldn't help but make me feel ashamed to live in a land where justice is a game. Now all the criminals in the...
I see that Bob Dylan is not afraid to jump in and get dirty in the fight. He's not afraid to jump into the ring, let's say, and start throwing punches. And again, he does it in a way that it's hard not to be moved by it. It's hard to say, oh, he's just being all dramatic. He's just trying to get us to feel sorry for somebody. And again, the fact that Bob Dylan, in that age, that time, of course, that era had Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and the whole civil rights movement and all the turbulence of the time as far as that goes. And this is a story about a black man who had things stacked against him by the white people. And I could easily see black people feeling incensed and outraged and afraid. But knowing what I know about that era, I know that many white people were complacent and satisfied, of course, and resistant. Not all, of course. But here's Bob Dylan. He's white. And he's out there singing this in public and making it part of his concerts. And I'm thinking, really wasn't afraid of anything, which I admire. I admire a lot. When you have a career, when you have a public image, when you have a life, and you choose to do something so controversial as this, when you don't even have to, nobody's calling you out and saying, yes, you need to do this, it's the right thing to do. It's you yourself choosing to put your career, your reputation, everything on the line for what you know is right, what you believe is just, and you're willing to put it all out there. That is very admirable. And what I'm hearing in the lyrics here, the way he calls everybody out, the way he tells the story, so that the unfairness and the injustice and the evil of it is so simply in your face. There's no denying it. There's no way around it. Well, of course, again, he's an artist, he's a musician. He's not the judge deciding the case. But I can't help but think that this song probably had a big impact on society at large, as well as the people on the fringes of the case, and as well as, everything else, the closer it came to the actual Rubin. It's so interesting that the judge refused to have the music played to him. I wonder why.
Now all the criminals in their coats and their ties are free to drink martinis and watch the sunrise, while Rubin sits like Buddha in a 10-foot cell, an innocent man in a living hell. Yes, that's the story of the hurricane, but it won't be over till they clear his name and give him back the time he's done. Put in a prison cell, but one time he could have been the champion of the world.
That must be his harmonica. That harmonica goes incredibly well with the violin. They partner so beautifully together. Let me listen to that ending one more time. What a piece of music. What a song. What a story. And what a telling of the story. As it was coming to an end, I was thinking about, again, the musical elements of this song. And again, I have to say, they're incredibly basic, incredibly simple. This one has more rhythmic variety and interest than the first one I listened to. And also this violin adds another dimension, which is a bit more expansive, a bit more, gives more shape to it and more variety. But the melody itself is again so simple. Most of the time it stays, well, a lot of it is just on three notes. Bum 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 ba dum bum 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 ba da 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 dum bum. And then it goes up, 5, 6 notes range. There's a variety. But it's repeated over and over and over. He is not trying to write a song. I feel as if, again, the music is the vehicle. It's not the end. It is the means to the end. And that is to tell the story, to make this injustice, to make this crime known. That's how he's using it and handling it. He sets it in a minor key. It's in A minor. And it suits because this is a minor song. Topic-wise. I don't mean minor as in small. I mean minor as in tonality. I want to make sure that's clear. And again, I notice the way he sings, he tells the story. He uses the rhythms of the words and he uses the inflection of his voice. And there is often this descent at the end of a line, at the end of a phrase. I think it's intentional. I also begin to wonder if it's part of his personal musical style, but he uses it to fine effect in this song. Because when you hear over and over, bum 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 ba da 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 dum bum, and then da 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 dum bum bum, when his voice rises a bit higher, it falls back down, as if this had so many chances to go right, and every chance it had to go right, it came right back down to where it was being to the wrong that was being done. How much of a risk was he taking when he performed this song in public? I don't know. I feel like there must have been a significant risk, at least to his popularity, his career. But he took it. And he took it without apologies. And as I said, I admire that. I appreciate that. I aspire to that kind of courage and that kind of commitment and truth-telling. I'm reminded a bit of Sinead O'Connor's experiences as well. Well, she took the risk and it did have a negative impact on her career. It's never known. When you take a risk, what will the outcome be? It won't always end up being something that you can weather the storm, you can go on and be famous and successful. It may very well tank your career, and that's a very real possibility. And somehow I believe that it was a very real possibility for Bob Dylan too. I know that back then there was the whole civil rights movement and the support for that, but still, anytime somebody is an artist in the public eye, there is a risk. And I guess I'm grateful that he took the risk and that he was able to succeed and that it was so well received. A great song. Great songs. I'm very happy that finally I have dipped my toe into the music of Bob Dylan. I look forward to doing more, but I feel like this special weekend of Bob Dylan was definitely a treat worthy of my time and attention, and it was a very enriching experience for me and inspiring. I look forward to the next weekend, which is going to be another special artist feature, and I'll see you next time.